This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any?
All right, we're back here on Sunday with the big football show and more. And, of course, I love getting Jim Jeffcoat laughing right off the bat every morning as we play that promo that he loves so much. So
Brooklyn.
That's right, it is. So anyway, thanks for joining us here on the big football show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hurst, Sonia Pearson, and, of course, two-time Super Bowl champion Jim Jeffcoat. I want to thank you for always thanking you for supporting us as we keep growing on every channel, especially Roku. We're up over 12,000 now. If you haven't done it yet, folks, go over to the Roku app on your TV. Go to the Roku store, channel search Northeast Streaming Sports, and there you go. You got all the shows up on the big screen, all sports, all day, every day. So just keep helping us grow, folks. We really appreciate it. Good morning, guys. How we doing today?
Good morning.
Good morning. Doing well. Hope you are too.
All right. Excellent. So, of course, we changed the show a little bit to football more because football is it's in the news. It's always in the news, but we cover a lot more sports here. And let's start a little bit, folks. I want to first send a shout out to Taylor Swift. Much maligned, a lot of pure football. People don't want to hear she's there or see her. But the teacher that was killed during that mass shooting, she gave $100,000 to their family. She's quite a humanitarian, really good at. She's not afraid to give some of the money she makes away to healthy causes. This was really a tragedy. I'm wondering, guys, where the Kansas City Chiefs are in the NFL. I mean, have you heard them supporting any of these people that got injured? I haven't seen nothing on it.
I have.
Good. Okay.
I saw that the Mahomes, and they do things quiet. They went to the hospital and met with all those children that got shot. And I think there were 12 of them. And they met with each one and had photo ops, and there was a photo op in there. And there are other players that quietly are helping the victims of this horrific act.
That's good.
And you were right.
Gave money as well.
Yeah.
And Travis Kelce gave $100,000 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good. Well, the players are at least stepping up. But that's something. Again, I wish the NFL would also. I know they would go on record and definitely say something if they did something.
Well, there were a couple teams that talked about. I don't know if they gave any money. I know the Raiders did. I know the Chargers did, and obviously the Chiefs did.
Right.
There were a couple of teams because this is really sad. This is really sad that you can't even have a parade. But it's, if you notice, in the last couple of years, when the team won the Super Bowl or things of that nature, there's always been that element that has caused. Last year in Dallas, they didn't have any issues when the Rangers won their Super Bowl. But
perhaps for security, instead of a parade going forward, they should just have the celebration in the stadium, because this way security, I think, would be a little tighter, with people coming in, because, this is a societal problem. You see on New Year's Eve at Times Square, New York, I mean, nothing ever major's gone down, at Times Square. But imagine it does just one time. Why wait for something to happen? So maybe these parades should really just be in the stadium.
The only issue I have with that, Jack, is you probably have more people that can fill a stadium. And that's the only thing I'm saying.
Well, yeah, you have a lot more people that are going to want to get in, but it's the same way with the games, right? You have so many people who get turned away from the games.
Do you think that Kansas City expected that the security was there. I imagine if this was like in Texas or New York, security would have been up. I mean, amped up. Do you think Kansas City?
I think they expected. I
ready?
think they said that it was 2 juveniles and it was a dispute, and they brought guns and they started shooting. But so you can't. I don't know what you can do to control that, because the only way you can do it is like Jack said. If you had it in a stadium, then you could check for firearms, which they do. But in an open place like that, that's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I would agree. Jimmy Garoppolo suspended for 2 games that he probably won't play in anyway for taking prescribed drugs that were not on the okay list, I guess it is. You know, I think if it was prescribed, I mean, come on. I mean, the guy, whatever he's got to do, deal with pain or whatever he's using it for. I think that sometimes they get a little crazy with their rules here, right? I mean, it's prescribed. It's prescribed. The doctor prescribed it. What do you want from the guy? You know, I would think it would be okay for me to take it if my doctor prescribed it, right? I don't know. So anyway, again, suspended for 2 days. Games he won't play, so I guess that counts. Let's take a look at some of the Jets news here. I want to bring this up here with Jack here. They're avoiding 4 contracts of players to make room under the cap. I guess these players really haven't played that much or haven't played at all, Jack. So, Jim and Jack, have you ever heard of contracts just being voided? It doesn't have to be reason or payoffs or something going on with that.
Well, I know Al Davis voided Mike Shanahan, his coach, after he fired him his contract. He just decided he wasn't going to pay him. Same thing with Lane Kiffin, you know, when he coached the Raiders. And Al Davis actually got away with it, incredibly, because if the other party whose contract is being voided is just fed up, they have a job elsewhere, they sometimes say, just forget it. They don't want to know from it. So, but how can you void a player's contract unless he does something socially unacceptable? Like, take the case of Jalen Carter recently. Let's say the Eagles wanted to move on from him, which they don't, because of certain remarks he made. Could they get away with it? Could they put a conduct clause in it, in the contract?
There's a certain amount of people on a NFL roster, and I think this is the lower part of the players, and they probably are in the last year of their contract, so they can void it. They might have wording in that contract that if they don't pick up the contract at March 1st, then they can void the contract, because we saw that with the quarterback Geno Smith at Seattle. They had to pick up his contract, so that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, Jim, would that not be kind of in line with when they came up with the I'm sure you all heard about when they changed the contracts for basically production purposes. Like, if you're not playing at such a high caliber towards a certain time within your contract, then they have the right to void it. Would that go kind of hand in hand with that?
I think you're right. I think that's what would happen is that it would go hand in hand, because you might have some things in your contract you have to get to a certain level before the contract moves on, or it's done.
Yeah, the 4 players. I think I know of one of them. Costello Lawson, Jordan Whitehead, Dwayne Brown, Quentin Jefferson. Maybe I'm mixing it up with another player. So those are the 4 ones that players that got rid of.
They're not names that you hear all the time. Right. And Jack's wife said that the parade, and it is for the people. It's a celebration for the people. If you put it in the stadium and charge it, then it's not a celebration.
It is for the people, but if something, this was major in Kansas City, but when I say major, if something really went down that was multiplied in the amount of casualties compared to Kansas City, I think all sport teams, there would be a change in philosophy. And my thing is, why wait for something like that to happen?
Well, you can't live in fear either, Jack. If you want to talk societal instead of just sports, I mean, then you might not want to go outside at all, right? So, I mean, that's true. That's something.
I feel that way.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, what about security for the players? We saw like 2-3 weeks ago, a fan just ran up to LeBron on the court, and LeBron like stared at security, like, "What's going on? Get this guy away from me!"
Mhm.
And it's a very sensitive issue. Fortunately, for the most part, the players have been safe. But if something ever happened, that's my point. I'd take action beforehand.
Well, like you're saying in stadiums, didn't a tennis player, was it Steffi Graf, that got stabbed in a stadium? And you just mentioned LeBron James, a guy running up on
Monica Seles by
Seles, yeah.
Steffi Graf fan, and she was never quite the same again. Let me just say, Monica Seles was a better player than Steffi Graf, but after she got stabbed, she was never quite the same. So even though history shows Steffi Graf to be the better player, Monica Seles at her peak was better than Steffi Graf. I thought I'd throw that in.
So it can happen in a stadium too, and you know, I mean, if somebody wants to do something, they'll find a way around to get it. So, JJ McCarthy keeps going up the draft board. I can't understand this to this extent. Michigan wasn't a throwing team. They really didn't highlight McCarthy. It was mainly a physical running game. McCarthy could run with the ball. When he did throw, he threw great. But I mean, how do you take a person that really didn't run in certain offense, unless that's the kind of offense you want to run when you're in the pros? How does this guy keep moving up the draft board? Is what I'd like to know.
I mean, a lot of people are well, not a lot of people. Apologies for that. People have spoken comparing him to Tom Brady, not just because of the fact that both of them have the Michigan ties, but they are saying that like he resembles them in a lot of his play styles and whatnot when Tom was on that specific level. And so I know I spoke with my audience, even though this is just a rumor. Perhaps they were even saying that Jim Harbaugh, now that he's back in the league, would even draft McCarthy, let him shadow Justin Herbert for a little bit, and then, you know, when the time is right to move on from Justin or what have you, actually continue coaching him. So that's what I've heard in the news off and on with the last couple of weeks with him moving up in the draft.
Well, sometimes there's a perception as opposed to reality. Remember a couple of years ago, Malik Willis was going number 1 and everyone was making a big deal about him for a while, that he was moving up in the draft because he was showing all this arm strength at the combines. We don't know for sure with JJ McCarthy. He could go like number 12 overall to Denver, or he could fall like late in the second round. It's unpredictable.
No, they're predicting he moves up in the top 5. What do you got, Jim?
The only thing I'm saying is sometimes systems help quarterbacks. Brock Purdy was one that comes to mind. There are only, and we always say there are only about 2 or 3 truly franchise quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And you can make your choices on them. But he's evaluating Justin Herbert right now. And some people say Justin Herbert's great, but he's in the same boat as Dak Prescott. He hasn't won enough playoff games. And he might say, if I got this guy, I'd work with this guy, I know his abilities, and he can play at that. Because he took Colin Kaepernick, and what did they go to, 2 Super Bowls? Imagine.
1 Super Bowl.
1?
Yeah. But the point, Justin Herbert did not have a good year last year.
No, he did not. And he
didn't. Was it the offensive line? Did he just regress a little bit? But I can't imagine Jim Harbaugh taking his own college quarterback now. I just can't imagine that.
You never know.
If he was going to do that, he would trade Justin Herbert right now, because Justin Herbert's value would be at its highest.
First of all, good morning, CJ.
Yes.
But the thing is, Jimmy Johnson took Steve Walsh with the idea of whoever lost, that was going to be the quarterback traded, because there's value in having quarterbacks on your roster, as we all know. And you can develop them, and the one that's the best is probably going to win out. The other one's probably going to move on. And there's always a market for quarterbacks. And I'm not saying that either Herbert or McCartney are on the same team and they're going to get traded. But the value is, you look at it now, the value of quarterbacks in there. Kirk Cousins is going to be, if he gets to the free market, there's going to be teams after him. Russell Wilson. We could all argue that they're no good or they're good or whatever. There is always a market because the quarterback is such there's such a main emphasis on that position in the NFL.
But Justin Herbert is good enough to get 2 number-1 draft choices in return.
Ooh, that's
good
hard.
enough to get a haul in return. Based, even though he had an off season last season, he was considered one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Jalen Hurts had off season last season. They're not gonna take JJ McCarthy, so let's not get crazy here.
Yeah.
Everybody has a bad season every now and then. I doubt they go after JJ McCarthy. They've got a team that's already built to win and in a few pieces. And
Are they built to win?
Yeah, they got talent, Jim. They got talent, Jim.
They got talent.
They had head. Well, that's why they get rid of their coach, Jim, because for some reason
Brandon Staley.
They always had. They had it when Anthony Lynn was. And
Anthony Lynn and Brandon Staley don't compare to Jim Harbaugh as a coach.
No, I agree, but are they built to win right now?
I think they're close. I think they're very close. I really do, Jim. I think they got talent.
I don't know, because now they're talking about getting rid of Khalil Mack. They want to know what they're going to do with Joey Bosa.
Echo's names come up.
Yep.
Yeah, well, they got to do what they got to do, and I bet a lot of it has to do with contracts too, Jim, and the age of Mac and all that stuff figures into it. It's not just that they think they're bad players anymore, because I think other teams would be.
No. What I'm saying is that he's got some work to do, because this team, he's got some. They're good. They're going to be well coached. They're going to play hard. He's going to go to what he's done all the time. He's going to use more tight ends in his system, and he's going to make an emphasis of it, and he's going to be patient with it. A good running game, tough defense. Those are the things that Harbaugh does.
What showed me what he's doing is when he brought up his offensive defensive coordinator with him. He wants to hit the ground running, Jim. He's not looking at.
Well, no, that's the offensive coordinator was the offensive coordinator at the Ravens, and he struggled with Lamar Jackson.
From what I read, he brought up the defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator that was in Michigan last year. That's what
no. The offensive coordinator. Remember, he was out last year. He was originally the Ravens, and they fired him. Yes.
Okay. So
anyway, with Harbaugh, it's not a case of a great college coach making his debut in the NFL like other college coaches have, and not being ready for it, even though they thought they were. He has this NFL pedigree, Harbaugh, so he knows what it takes.
Yeah, and CJ Browns, there's always going to be players overpaid.
Oh yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, you're right. But also, you got to look at it is that who's in that division in the AFC West? Kansas City.
Right.
Yeah,
Kansas City has got probably the best quarterback of this era in Mahomes. If they can bring more things around them, it's still going to be a good. And they got one of the best quarterbacks. The head coaches of all time. You can argue, but the guy's been pretty successful.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that at all. The 49ers. The 49ers have to decide about Jack's favorite quarterback, Sam Darnold, what they're going to do with him. He played second string all year behind the what they call the last player in the draft selected, most irrelevant draft pick of the year before. So anyways, they're wondering whether to release him or let him go compete somewhere, sign him again. And just for Jack, let's play what if Sam Darnold started the Super Bowl with the 49ers have won that game, Jack?
No, you can't say they would have won the game, of course, but there might be a market for Sam Darnold, certainly as a backup. I'd welcome him to come back to the Jets. Wouldn't you welcome him to come to the Giants? He's a competent quarterback. He got a little play this year when he came in for Brock Purdy and actually looked good.
He did well when he played with the Panthers. He got us 5 wins in a row.
Well, he lost the starting job. Had Sam Darnold performed for your Panthers, Sonja, correct me if I'm wrong, the way you hoped he would, they never would have drafted Bryce Young because they gave up a number 2, a number 4, and a number 6 draft choice to get Sam Darnold. That's good draft capital. and it didn't quite work out. He couldn't hold on to the jobs. Ironically, Baker Mayfield couldn't hold on to the Panther job either. Look what he did in Tampa Bay. Yeah, so you wouldn't have had Bryce Young, which I don't know whether that is ultimately going to be a good or bad decision.
Yeah, he was winning. Then he went out on an injury around the same time Christian McCaffrey was injured. Christian stayed injured. Sam came back. Sam couldn't win without Christian, and then Sam lost his starting job. That's how it went.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good morning, Rick. But
Good morning, Rick.
CJ brings up a good point. Quarterbacks have struggled over the years, and I don't know why in the New York Jets organization. And whatever reason, they've struggled. And I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know is it how they're developed. And they don't really have a lot of time.
They're not that good, Jim. That's why they've struggled. They're not that good.
But
Sam Darnold wasn't that good. No one ruined
just
Sam
like
Darnold. He wasn't that good.
Darnell, he played well in Carolina. Geno Smith has played well.
He didn't play well in Carolina. They moved on from him. I mean, he had a few good games, okay, but he couldn't hold on to the starting quarterback job, Sam Darnold. Bottom line, he just couldn't.
Injuries, they like him in the 49ers.
As a backup, yeah, he's a competent backup. He's the type of guy you want on your team because he has experience as a starter. He has some ability. So, the backup position in the NFL is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest problem with the Jets was the coaching turnover. They kept turning over coaches every year, every 2 years. You can't develop anybody really if you keep doing that.
Same with Carolina.
Yeah, staffs are going in and out. So I mean, there's no consistency. You're not going to develop anybody, not even just the quarterback. Anybody, any team. So let's talk a little bit about. Of course, we got the combine coming up. There's been and let's see if I get this right. After internal discussions, the agents at Athletes First have directed the draft prospects not to do psychological or conjite, I hope I'm saying that right, testing during the pre-draft process. Now, I know when they interview them, they used to have them take tests and stuff. They would ask them these crazy questions that really didn't make sense to them, but maybe made sense to others. And they're directing them not to do it. Now, I don't know if you can draft a player, your option. You could take whoever you want. The kid has nothing to say about it. Bring him to a place he maybe never has been before, and all of a sudden the agents are saying, "Well, you can do all that to my guy, but we're not going to let him take a test." I don't really get that. I don't get the premise of that. I mean, if that's part of the draft process or the process there, the interview, that's what the process is. This won't happen. But if the NFL says, "Hey, keep your kid, we don't want him," but the team's been together, we don't even want to draft him. How's that? What would the agents do then? So I don't know. I kind of the draft process itself is kind of weird the way it's set up, where the player really doesn't have a lot of say. Some do, the bigger ones, but most don't. Right? It's you're going to go when you're going to go, and then you're going to put this this thing at the end saying, "Well, he's not going to take any kind of test." And Jim, I know you went through this. I don't know if you had a psychological test or not.
Yes,
did that.
You always do, but right. It's weird questions. They ask you a lot of weird questions.
Right.
And what's the problem with it? And the reason the agents don't want to do it anymore is because there's leaks in it, and they tell a player's falling because of certain things on his test. Prime example is Stroud last year from Ohio State. They said he didn't do well on the cognitive test, if you remember. And that's why Bryce Young went over him. And that was the thing is that sometimes they're not accurate on how a player is going to perform at the next level. Everybody's different. Not everybody's the same. Some people perform well on tests, but they don't perform well obviously on the field. And then some people perform terrible on tests, but when you put them on the field, because that's how they are. They see things and they can vision them and, that's how it's done by looking at it. Then some people, you can write it down and they can do it all day, but they can't do it on the field.
Right.
So everybody's different.
So what is, I mean, I guess they would understand that too, Jim, right? I mean, I imagine you're going to work them out. They're not just going to have them take tests. They're going to look at
but what they do is they do background checks.
Right.
See what person is, not on the football field, but what kind of person he is in around people. Can he get along with his teammates? Is he a me first guy? Because that's scary now, because you got a lot of that coming out. Can he take the pressures, just like we talked about with the New York Jets? If he's in a big market like LA or New York or places like that, can he adjust to the pressure that he's going to be under? Because it is no time. When I came out, you had time to develop. I didn't play very many games as a defensive end my rookie year, but I started my second year. You had time to develop. But you're a bust regardless. If you're going to be good. It's just, we saw that with Thibodeau. Everybody was saying he was bust. His second year, he got better.
He still has a long ways to go. Come on, Jim. But
he'll start playing better, Jack.
You came out when you came out. Tom Landry was your coach, the legendary Tom Landry, and Mac has a pretty good read on college quarterbacks. I got to give it up for Mac.
Yeah.
But Tom Landry's philosophy was it takes a quarterback 5 years to develop in the NFL. Your fan base won't give a quarterback 5 years. Are you kidding me? Look at Kenny Pickett. After 2 years, the Steelers might move on from him. Sonia could tell you, Bryce Young, we're all high on Bryce Young.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
But are they going to give Sonia, how much time is Bryce Young going to be given by the fan base? If he has a bad year this year, what's the deal going to be with Bryce Young?
Jack,
they've already been talking about that. And they're saying 2 years.
My argument is
2 years. You hear Sonia say 2 years, that's the max.
And I agree, but my argument is that Jordan Love.
Justin Fields,
and they gave him time to develop, and he's going to be a pretty good darn quarterback. So you have to give some guys a little bit more time.
So let me put it this way. Good morning, Joel. Glad to have you from
MBR
Military Broadcast Radio. Jim, so I get what you're saying, but Jordan Love was sitting back. He wasn't actually playing the game.
That's what I'm saying.
And when you play the game, given Bryce Young, he's already been through 1 year that's kind of not been so good. And if he has another year that's not so good, I'm not blaming Bryce Young. I don't think he's going to be a great quarterback of my eye. He'd be average to me. But in all cases, I think that this pressure and what's put on him right now, I don't think he's going to have a good year next year. It depends on what they do off season. I don't know what you can do for Bryce Young. C.J. Stroud came into a good position, right? The Texans were pretty competitive the year before. The Panthers were not. And when to me, I don't know what happened with the draft process. You got to build your offensive line, especially if you're going to have a young core. If you want to get a young core, you got to have a good offensive line. You got to have a good offensive coach. You don't just draft a kid and throw him in there and say, get going. That kind of what happened to Justin Fields, too. Justin Fields.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree with you there. Bryce Young's in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
Because they have to hit on all their draft picks this year. But the problem is, and we say, well, he can go to free agency and get offensive linemen. Now you got to, just like CJ said earlier in the show, you're going to overpay for a guy that might be average.
Yeah.
And especially in the offensive line, because there's such a need for him. I mean, Houston, the Texans had some pretty good offensive linemen.
Yeah.
I've always said the situation that Bryce came into was not conducive for success for any rookie quarterback in Carolina. The O-line, the coaching scenario, the ownership scenario. I mean, every level there was an obstacle. And for him to be a first-year quarterback, and I've had a debate with some other Panthers fans, I felt like he should have come in. They should have done him like they did Jordan Love, let him shadow whoever was already there. We had the red rifle. He could have at least allowed him to shadow him 3 games. But people said that would basically ruin the confidence of the quarterback coming in, being that we gave up so much to get him. But there was a beat writer for the Panthers that actually came out and actually has trashed Bryce Young just within the last couple of days and said he's never going to be the quarterback that we thought he was going to be, that we misjudged it based off those cognitive tests that he was able to succeed in, whereas C.J. Stroud was not, and that it would be detrimental to the team, not only this season, but going forward until basically we have gone another route with quarterback.
Could I just say about Bryce Young, the big knock on Bryce Young was he wasn't durable enough because he was undersized. There was concerns about his durability. He actually passed that test. No one brings it up. If nothing else, he showed himself to be durable during his rookie year.
Yeah.
I mean, he missed one game.
Yeah.
And that's
If
probably
that-
just to be resting, to be honest. But, you know, he
if
was
that
sacked quite a
adds up
bit.
if that adds up to wins, they would definitely be happy in Carolina if the not getting hurt added up to wins. It's listen, it's a bad situation, and again, I never thought he was a franchise quarterback. Anyway, Jim, let me ask you something. Right?
Yes.
Michigan had a great offensive line last year. Why when you draft somebody, how come you don't draft like the guard and tackle together, right? They've worked together for 4 years, maybe 3 or 4 years in college. Why don't you've been in draft rooms before? Why don't they take the left guard and left tackle together in the draft?
I think because it's a unique difference between the pro level and the college level. And maybe that left tackle is really good, but the left guard might not be as good. And there's teams that do that. They do draft certain players from certain teams, but you're learning a new system too. And maybe you won't be as good, or maybe you haven't faced that good a talent. You don't face Chris Joneses every day in college, but you do face them in the NFL because you got Dexter Lawrence.
I was just asking, working together, having that chemistry. I mean, listen,
you can, but everything is different. Everything is different when you go. They're going to have different calls, different checks, different responsibilities.
I don't understand something about football compared to the past. You used to have the fullback and a halfback. They would stay back and they would block for the quarterback at certain times. You just don't see that anymore. That's 2 additional blockers.
Yep.
And, and if you keep the tight end in tight to block too, I know now you have only a couple of wide receivers, but especially if you have an elite wide receiver too, they'll find a way to get open some way, somehow.
Yeah, but the problem
will have extra time to
but
throw.
the quarterback will have, but you have less people in the routes.
Of course.
And obviously,
what's the alternative?
What they do, if you block, like you said, the tight end and the halfback or the fullback, then they're going to bring extra people at you to try to get one-on-ones.
Well, I've seen teams do that when the blitz is too much, and I've seen them complete passes like that too. But to me, you got to adjust as the game goes on. If you're getting blitz a lot, you're gonna have to start putting people in.
Let me tell you what Kansas City did against San Francisco. Since we're talking about that, did you notice when every time they pulled the guard or a tackle, the linebacker attacked that gap? There was a reasoning behind it, because that's an open gap, and that always made free. Chris Jones made a huge play down by the goal line because the guard pulled, and he went in the gap that he left, and he vacated, and he was unblocked because they brought a linebacker and they blocked the linebacker.
Yeah,
and the same play they used to win the last Super Bowl was the exact same last play they used to win this one. The Tom and Jerry corn dog.
Yeah, the Philly special. Yeah.
Could the 49ers
they didn't even throw it to him? They were going to give it to the wide receiver that was in the formation. They didn't. They didn't want to throw it to Jax.
Yep, former Jet.
Oh, wow. Former Jets. I want to talk about former Jets. Can the 49ers have done anything different on defense in overtime when it was 4th and 1 for Kansas City? Should they have stacked the line of scrimmage and allowed one-on-one coverage, figuring, okay, if Mahomes is going to pass and he gets a touchdown on us, we're going to take a chance one-on-one, but we're stacking the line of scrimmage. They're not going to get that 1 yard. They're going to have to do some type of passing play. But instead, they played a little loose where Mahomes was able to easily run for the first down.
It would have been tough because they had 2 options. With Mahomes, there was nobody there. And like you said, they could have blitzed it, but because of Mahomes' ability, he probably was going to get you. They probably was going to throw it to Kelsey because if you remember who was out of the game, Greenlaw was injured. And Greenlaw shut Kelsey down. But once he got hurt, did you notice Kelsey started to make plays?
Yep, receiving.
Yep.
The first half, he only had 1 reception for 1 yard the entire first half.
No, great players heat up as a big game goes along. I don't go for the spread. They just
I
get
think it was
better with
Greenlaw was
everything
really
on the
playing.
line.
He was playing Kelsey well, and then you could put
Yeah.
Warner. That helps Warner. But once he left the game with the injury, which was really sad to see, that hurt the 49ers more than people thought it would.
Yeah, that was.
And the Steve Wilkes saga is going to be, there's going to be a lot of off-season talk. As far as the 49ers, they better improve on defense next year, because if they take a step backwards, Kyle Shanahan's not going to have to answer to.
But did you know, doesn't this sound familiar? Doesn't it sound familiar with Shanahan? Because remember Washington? There were situations. They started off really well with his ring there, and then they struggled as it progressed. Now, and this was his dad. Now this thing is happening. And do you think the defense, you hold Patrick Mahomes to 19 points in 4 quarters? 19 points. That's pretty impressive. And now
they were looking for a scapegoat, and they said defense wins championships, but the defense did not lose this game.
No, I don't think they did.
Well, there was other things going on. There was other things going on. There was disagreements during the year.
It was a personality thing.
And there were some games that San Fran didn't play as well as they thought they would. Listen, Wilson will find another job. He's a great defensive backfield coach. That's what his primary job is. That was the biggest knock on him with San Francisco, that he didn't really work with the defensive line, the linebackers, as much as he did the defensive backs. And he did have some good defensive backs play. The interesting thing, Jim and Sonja and Jack, is they're talking about Belichick going to San Francisco as a defensive coordinator.
I was wondering if
he is not going to go as a defensive coordinator anywhere. Forget about it.
I don't think so.
No.
And I did not say anything against Belichick, but you'd have to change your whole system.
Yeah,
because their
Shanahan way is totally different.
I would think he wouldn't just be defensive coordinator, he'd probably be assistant head coach too. It would be a way to get back into the league after not taking a year off.
And he'll get a job as soon as a team is struggling. The big talk
I don't think so.
is going to be about Belichick. He'll be a head coach.
But you got Mike Vrabel
next season's over. How's that?
How's this? I think if he doesn't do this, Bill Belichick's all done. How's that? That's what I think. If Bill Belichick doesn't find a way to get back into coaching,
72 years old. Enjoy your life.
He's all done.
Mike Vrabel doesn't even have a job right now.
Yeah. It's 72 years old. Enjoy your life. Because you know how many days you have or years you have left.
If the Panthers are struggling, Sonja, their owner Tepper, who moves on from coaches, you mean to tell me he wouldn't hire Bill Belichick all of a sudden?
It's funny you mentioned that. We just hired Pete Carroll's son to come in and start helping out. We've got the whole Tampa Bay crew up in there, basically. So I don't know. The fans probably would have wanted Belichick, but not. That's going to be a powerhouse struggle. I don't see him working under Tepper at all.
Listen, the problems Bill Belichick has had the last few years, and he's getting older, and I think the only way he stays in football is a coordinator. He's a great defensive coordinator. That would be the only way I could see Bill Belichick being in football. No, I don't think anybody, Jack, is going to hire him as head coach. I'm honest. I mean,
if the Jets struggle, you mean to tell me Woody Johnson, not next season, okay, not this season,
I don't think so.
Wouldn't reach out to Belichick?
I think they're looking for the next young quarterbacks.
I agree with Jim. Like, he's coached a long time. Enjoy your money. Enjoy your life. Relax. Travel. You know, like, you're going to coach forever.
He's addicted to coaching. Let him work the rest of his life.
Let him.
He's sending him to the golf course. If he enjoys coaching, you're putting him out to pasture, all of you.
Yeah, well, Jim, that's a good point Rick makes.
I'm not doing
coaching.
Jim would be good as the defensive coordinator at XFL. I think he'd elevate the play there. Jim could hold his own if Stone Cold came in the locker room halftime complaining how the defense was doing.
But
Jim would be a good
Belichick
coach anywhere. Yeah.
and Pete Carroll, these guys, and that's the thing. There's young coaches that are going to get their opportunity, and I'm just telling. That's just the reality of the game, because with the players are changing, and we all know that because we look at them and how they react to coaches is big. And I'm not saying Bill's not. The same thing happened, unfortunately, to Tom Landry. I mean, and that's what it was. People change, and it's not that you can't coach. You're coaching a different type of player.
Listen,
Tampa went on the record and said that he wanted to get Canales from Tampa because he was 42, and he was quoted as saying, "I want a coach that could be here 20, 30 years," was exactly his words when he hired him.
Well, he will not be there 20 or 30 years.
Hypothetically, let's make believe Mac owned the Giants. Mac was wealthy. He owned the Giants. The ball gets off to a terrible start. Mac as an owner would look at Belichick.
No, because you hear what Belichick, Mac will tell you what Belichick said about it, about the Giants.
The ownership there. But besides that, I think, listen, Zimmer got back in the game as a defensive coordinator, right? He was a head coach. He could have said, "No, I want to be a head coach." He goes back to Dallas as a defensive coordinator. I would imagine Dallas would have took Belichick as defensive coordinator also, probably above Zimmer. But right now, there's a pause here. And I think Belichick's going to come to the understanding that he's not going to be able to head coach in the NFL no more. And I don't know if it's right or wrong or indifferent. I don't know. I just think that, there's personalities that mesh and some that don't. And that's why he didn't get the Atlanta job, Jack. The personalities there didn't mesh. And you can't expect a team to open up now unless the coach is young and ready to go and say, okay, you can take care of everything. The trust isn't there anymore. The GM's job's in jeopardy. It's just so much to think about today. It's not just like going and picking this great guy off the off the hill that was a great coach once to say, hey, take it and go. Now in college, maybe it's different. The thing that used to bother me, tell me if you guys agree with me. It should be Belichick's job till he's ready to retire. When they say that about coaches, it drives me out of his mind. He's earned the right to walk away whenever he wants to walk away. What does that mean? Right? I mean, I think the guy's been there for a long time, but if you can't put together a winning season, man, you're out of here. I'm sorry. That's the way it should be.
But he basically walked away, correct, with Belichick. So he did earn it.
Yeah,
I know they coached him, just like they did Coach Landry, but he did earn that right because he brought a lot of success to Engle, and he did. They didn't say, "Hey, Bill, you got to go." They talked to Bill at that time. And
I'm just saying.
It even came for Vince Lombardi.
I'm just saying. I don't think they just said you can go, Bill, if you want. I think they said you're gone, Bill. I mean, I don't think they said
it did.
Yes,
it probably did.
Yes. All right. So I just wanted to get that off my chest because that thing drives me crazy when they say he earned the right. Anyway, now this is not about the Giants. I use the Giants example because I know them better. And this is about the draft process, right? You got these people out there saying the Giants will be picking wide receiver Malik Neighbors, great wide receiver. LSU. He's number one, 43%. They're going to draft him over anybody else. And yet the Giants have receivers. They're not great receivers, but they got decent receivers, and they don't have a good offensive line. And they need a quarterback. I just don't get where these people come out saying what they need. And it could be any team. And this percentage, Dallas is going to take say they're going to take a outside linebacker, right? Their first, they know what they're going to take. They don't know. They're definitely not in the draft room. Jim, I know you've been in the draft room, so that's why I'm going.
A lot of teams look at the best athlete available, and that's what happens. And sometimes the only scary thing about it is you might have an athlete available at a position that you have talent at. So you got to be careful if he's the best athlete available, taking him. If you got, say, CeeDee Lamb, you don't want to take a receiver that high. You want to look at, okay, what's the best athlete available at the position of need? Does he fit what you're trying to accomplish? Obviously, with the Cowboys, as linebackers, they got to find the best athlete available at the linebacker position, because they can get away with. They can bring Gilmore back. They've already got the DB coming back and the 2D, and they got some talent there. So they really are not going to probably take DB unless it's a safety. But and it's the best athlete available, and you have to look at it. What's the value of the pick? Always when you sit in a draft room, which I have, they look at, is this a valuable pick? Parcells' big thing is that we can find at that time, and this is a different era, we can find linemen that can play in the NFL down the road. And that was his big. We don't need to take a lineman in the first round. Running backs, he always said, and he's taken running backs in the first round. And he always said that unless he's special, then we don't want to take him that high. D linemen are hard to find, he always thought, and finding those inside linebackers was difficult.
Sure. Jack, I don't know what it is with your echo. I don't know if the window is open or what's going on there with you. You got some noise over there.
Oh, okay. I think it's the birds in the background. I don't know. In Florida here, Mac.
It must be robotic birds because they sound robotic.
They're sabotaging Jack. So, speaking of the Cowboys, CD Lamb did give Wan'Dale Robinson some props, and he did have a good year. He came back from a hurt year. Good slot receiver. I think he's going to be real good coming up along the way. Zach Wilson is enjoying his offseason, Jack. He just was down into the Caribbean. He's now over in Europe skiing with his girlfriend. And so he's not worried too much about what's going to happen to him. And I guess if it's not within your control, what are you going to do anyway, right?
I feel so validated after getting into a disagreement with Jim during the season. I'm completely validated. Zach Wilson went on vacation during the football season with his girlfriend. Jim said, he has a life to live. He's entitled to go on vacation. No, he's not, Jim.
Why
not during the season? He has to live, sleep, breathe, eat football during the season. In the off season, fine. Go on his vacations, do whatever the heck you want.
Not
during the season. You've got to have 100% of football commitment. And that was Jimmy Johnson's attitude. That was Jimmy Johnson's
attitude. That was not his attitude. He would tell you, we had the buys, and after we practiced, he'd give us off a couple of days, and he said, get away from it, because he said it's a long season. It is not a sprint. It's a marathon. So you need to separate yourself and catch your breath. He always said that. He said, this is time off for you. Just get relaxed. And some people would relax a lot, but you're right. There's some people that are so intense that they can't relax. So everybody's built different. And I think Zach Wilson had other issues, but not because he went skiing with his girlfriend or.
Well, it was off season. Off season.
Yeah, it's off season.
I like the kid. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, you going to sit home and cry about it? I mean, either you're going to be traded or you're not, or whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's basically out of his control right now. So, I don't know.
I think the biggest nightmare for not just the Jets, any organization, is to draft the players high as the Jets drafted Zach Wilson, number 2 overall in the draft. Not see him succeed in the few years he was with your franchise, then go elsewhere and succeed immediately. That would be a reflection on the coaching staff.
Well, isn't that Baker Mayfield? We're basically having the Baker Mayfield.
No. Baker Mayfield was kind of successful with Cleveland. The 4 years he was there, he had 2 good years. He didn't quite cut it with Sonja's Panthers, but then he was good as a backup with the Rams, and then he went to Tampa Bay, and he's been good. So all in all, Baker Mayfield has been more successful than not. Baker Mayfield, he's a free agent. Could he be a franchise quarterback anywhere? Will the Buccaneers decide to maybe make him a 2-year quarterback and then take it from there? What?
I don't think he'd be a franchise player. He'd be a serviceable one, but he wouldn't be. Go ahead, Jim. No, go ahead.
I think Baker Mayfield is your 2 touchdown, 2 interception quarterback. That's what he is, and you got to rely on the rest of the team. He's a piece. He's definitely not a franchise quarterback.
But I think what happened with Baker Mayfield, in my opinion, is it came too fast to him. Everything. I mean, you got to remember, this kid was a walk-on at Texas Tech, and then when Mahomes came, they didn't give him. Mahomes beat him out, and he wanted to transfer to Oklahoma. At the first, they wouldn't let him transfer. They didn't give him the rights to play.
Let me ask you, all of you, this hypothetically. Let's say you're a team like the Washington Commanders. You're picking second. They're projected to take Jaden Daniels and Drake May as their franchise quarterback, but they decide we're going to sign Baker Mayfield as a free agent, and we're going to draft Marvin Harrison. Would they be better off with Mayfield and Harrison, or just Drake May or Jaden Daniels? That's thought-provoking.
First of all, they wouldn't do it because of the past problems with Kingsbury and Mayfield. Mayfield was who was holding it up for him going to Oklahoma, was Kingsbury. So that's not going to happen. Second is, I think Harrison is probably the best player in
New England. Let's say New England at number 3. They're going to probably take a quarterback, sign Baker Mayfield, and then have them take Marvin Harrison.
You could get some trade capital for Harrison. Somebody's going to jump up to try to get him. I think it is.
No, well, listen. To me, Caleb ends up in Washington with his old coach. They're going to give out the farm to get that first round pick to Chicago, so them two guys work together again. And I think that's where Caleb Williams is going to end up anyway. I think Marvin Harris goes number 2 overs.
You got to think about it. If the New England Patriots miss out on the top 2 quarterbacks, which is what they really need anyway, then that Marvin Harrison would be like the normal conclusion that they probably would come up with, especially, coming into what the needs of that agent, that franchise
That's
is.
That's true.
I'll tell you right now, Chicago owns that draft this year. They can do almost anything.
Oh, yeah. There's no question.
And nobody knows what. I know everybody's thinking, hey, they're going to get rid of this guy. I have no idea what they're going to do.
They're talking about trading Justin Fields, possibly to New England, possibly to
and getting Caleb Williams.
All places, Caleb Williams.
They own that draft.
Let me ask you a question, and I'm just asking this. I've watched USC over the years with Caleb Williams. Is he's first of all, he's not as big as Mahomes. Do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
And is he the guy that is going to lead your organization to the next level? And I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but does he fit the
Chicago now? Yep.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing.
Because he struggled. He struggled.
You know what's hard, Jim? You know what's hard? Because USC really didn't have a good team. I didn't really get a chance to really look at Caleb. I saw highlights with him. He made great plays or turned the ball over. And, it looked to me like they put the whole team on his shoulders, win or lose, which is, is probably the wrong thing to do at any level of football. So I really don't know. I think, I could be safe and say he probably be a starting quarterback. Will he be good? I have no idea.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you think he's similar to Kyler Murray?
No, he's not that small.
But no, not from the.
Kyler Murray's book is still open. Let's see how he develops going forward. He's proven himself to be a good NFL quarterback if he could stay healthy and start showing leadership qualities. But the potential is there for Kyler Murray.
I guess what I'm asking is, in Arizona, Kyler Murray was the quarterback, and he was a Pro Bowl player. That wasn't the question, I guess. And his stats were really good, but they never made it to the next level.
Right.
They made it to the playoffs, I think, one time. And what I've noticed, and I've been in this scheme, I've worked with Cliff. That scheme does not, and it happened at USC. Those schemes do not help defense. I don't care how good a defensive coordinator you are. The scheme is not built to help defense at the end of the game because they score really quick and you could be worn out. You're going to play a lot of plays. You're going to play. And in today's NFL, you don't have the depth because of the salary cap to help you bring in linemen, linebackers. You don't have that kind of depth. So you wear people down. You're going to play. When I played, you played 65, 70 was a big thing, but you're playing 90, 95 plays now. So that makes a difference on especially defensive players. And that's all I'm saying. I'm saying that Caleb Williams could be similar to Kyler Murray. He's going to get a great stats. He's going to look good. But the bottom line is winning games. Mahomes helps his defense in some of the things he does, but can he help his defense? And that's all I'm asking.
Again, I don't know how you can tell. I mean, college and NFL are so different, as most quarterbacks find out. I don't know yet. I think that's another. I think they should always not start rookie quarterbacks anyway. That would be me as a head coach. I would never do that to a quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, just to look at generational quarterback, is pretty much a good quarterback now. And I think a lot of it has to do with starting them right away. I know Jack used to argue with me all the time, but if you look at Jordan Love and you look at some of these quarterbacks that have sat and learned, they seem to be better prepared when they go out there. They can handle the pressure.
We don't know how good Jordan Love is still going to be. He didn't need 3 years, Jordan Love, to be on the bench. I can understand 1 year. Andy Reid did do it with Patrick Mahomes. I can understand 1 year. They don't need to sit more than 1 year.
Listen, Jack. Not only did he sit for 3 years, I think Rodgers sat for a few years too.
But Rodgers, that was a waste.
I think
3 years. Rodgers
was it?
Maybe 1 year, but the last two were complete. It didn't help Rodgers' career.
No, Jack, it did not at all. Anyway,
he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer.
No, I'm saying Rodgers did not need the additional 2 years. It didn't benefit him. I'm sure.
How can you say that?
Why do we only do this with quarterbacks?
Wait a minute. How can you say? How can you say it didn't benefit him when it truly did? I mean, the results are there, and you're telling a guy that played in the NFL that it doesn't when he played in the NFL. I don't get it.
Why do we say this only for quarterbacks? If Tom Landry had Jim Jeffcoat sit for 3 years,
because the quarterback. Go ahead. Thank you, Jim. Go.
No,
Jim,
all I'm saying, Landry had Roger Staubach sit for a year, and then what did he do? He put Craig Morton was the starting quarterback, and then Staubach came in, and obviously the rest is history. I mean, sometimes quarterbacks are different. We talk about C.J. Stroud. Because of the people around him, he has success. Bryce Young didn't have that background with the people around him. They traded Christian McCaffrey. They traded their first-round pick to get Bryce Young. These things are different. So he didn't come to a team that you always got to have people around you to make you successful. And you just don't do it alone, especially a quarterback.
Hey, Jim, he didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback in front of him.
That's
Rodgers
true.
had a Hall of Fame quarterback in front of him.
True.
It wasn't Alex Smith. Is that Alex Smith?
Gotta wait your turn.
I mean, that's just the way it was.
But it depends if the guy in front of you is helping you to learn. Brett Favre and Rodgers had a distant relationship. Even Rudolph Mason, who sat behind Ben Roethlisberger, he basically more or less said Roethlisberger ignored him the whole time, didn't try to help him. Sometimes the starter does try to help the backup, but especially if it's a highly drafted backup, the starter knows it's inevitable he's going to get replaced. And that has to put a strain on the relationship, no matter what the outside dynamics are.
But the problem is, you can't judge each quarterback as, they should all sit. But you can also say maybe this guy needs to sit until we get Desmond Ridder. It might have helped him in Atlanta.
Jim, I think it all depends on the team and where the team is, right?
Yeah.
Kansas City already had a good team without Patrick Mahomes. No Super Bowl team, but they had a good team. They had a great team right there, and they had a decent quarterback in front of them, so they could afford to wait a year.
Yeah. Alex Smith.
Carolina didn't have anything, so I mean, there you go.
That's what I was just thinking. We didn't have anybody for Bryce to shadow.
Right. So,
Sonia, is Bryce Young going to be better next season because he played and he took his lumps for 1 year? or would he have been better off not playing and starting this year new and not getting the in-game experience he had last season?
I mean, if we had someone that he could have shadowed, where he could have taken some time, that would a comparable quarterback. Let's be clear about that, not just a random quarterback that's just there that's not performing well already. But to be honest, like maybe physically his endurance may be better because he's already subjected his body to so much, that first year in the league. But overall, I don't, maybe 3 extra games of wins. That's what I'm looking at right now. I'm not looking at, unless they do major revamping besides just at that position, he cannot win these games by himself with what we have.
No doubt. Good morning. The Philly sports guy, Pags, is in. How
Good
you doing
morning,
this morning,
Pags.
Pags?
Good morning, Pags.
Morning. How is everybody?
Good, good.
We're doing good. You're like a Japanese movie. You're not, the voice is coming at the mouth isn't catching up. It's pretty interesting. Thanks for coming and sharing with us there, Pags.
Okay.
So since Pags showed up and I got Jim here, let's talk a little Dallas Cowboy news. And your Hall of Fame running back had some choice words for your players, Jim. He says, listen, stop living off the past and our Super Bowl glory. Start getting your head in the game. Stay off Twitter. Play like you want to win it. Don't complain that your legs hurt in the fourth quarter of the playoff game. What do you think?
Like I said, this is a new era. This is different. You got players playing that have podcasts. You have family complaining about other players on Twitter and social media. Social media is taking over. And obviously we're a part of it, but that's the problem you have. And that's what he's saying. It's got to be, and CJ put up team. It's got to be team. There's no I in team, but now is how can I basically advertise or put myself out there? How can I do that? And that's what players do now. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because they see that this is lucrative to do this and they can make a lot of money doing it. So they do it. They want to hear their opinions on everything. And sometimes those opinions need to stay in the locker room. You can't put everything out there because the locker room is a unique place. And that's what you're dealing with. CeeDee Lamb's mom talking about Dak Prescott. That wasn't CeeDee Lamb talking about him. That's a mother talking about him. Dak Prescott's brother talking about he needs to get out of Dallas and things like that. These things are happening, and that can fracture a locker room quicker than anything.
I want to focus on what he said last, Jim. Fourth quarter, they were complaining they were tired. What is that?
Oh, that wasn't him. That was DeMarcus Lawrence. And that bothered me. I mean, how can you be burnt out? This is the playoffs. That bothers me. I mean, don't go in the game then. Don't play.
I agree with you. I agree with
One of the greatest things, one of the greatest lines I ever saw when the Rams beat the Titans in the Super Bowl, it came down to the last play. I forgot who the Ram player was, but he turned to Dick Vermeil and said he was tired to take him out of the game. And Vermeil said, "You want to go out of the game? The last play of the game with the Super Bowl on the line." That was unbelievable to Coach Vermeil.
Oh, there you go. All right, Jack. So you did mention Pete Carroll's son was hired as a passing game coordinator. Of course, right now she's busy handling, I don't know what's going on over there, but she's handling something else, so we'll get back to that later.
Yeah, so sorry, that was my Alexa talking. I had to unplug her. I don't know why she randomly started talking. Yeah, so we got Pete Carroll's son. I mean, hopefully those genes kind of, ebb down to him. Carolina's doing a lot of bringing in folks that are tied to other people right now. And in my opinion, the name speaks for itself, but we're still grasping at straws. Let's be honest. I mean, I'm not 100% confident in the future of our team, at least for next season. Maybe if we had brought Bill Belichick in, I probably would have been like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it. Or Jim Harbaugh, someone of that caliber. But I'm gonna have to wait, honestly, to see the writing on the wall. Of course, I got little notes here about his son. I am going to be definitely watching everything. And hi, Guy Country Sonya. I don't like him.
I didn't mean to throw you off. Yeah, go ahead, Sonia.
He's horrible. The comment that just popped up.
Okay.
I just don't have like a lot of confidence in what's going on right now with that organization as a whole. The fact that we did bring in Pete Carroll's son, it's just, I'm just going to be looking. Nathan Carroll is going to be just a passing game coordinator. Passing game coordinator. What is that? Just to focus on passes? I don't get that. And we do know that he was shifted to the advisor role. Pete Carroll was. So that's the only thing really his claim to fame is just the fact that he's Nathan Carroll, son of Pete Carroll. But I didn't see anything stellar that screamed Jim, unless you know something different.
No, correct me if I'm wrong. Canales, he was only 1 year at Tampa, and before that he was at Seattle.
Yes. So
he had a relationship with him.
Canales, right, that relationship. But let's be clear about Canales. We signed a coach who just got the team to the first playoff berth just because the NFC South was so bad. It wasn't nothing to write home about. It wasn't like he had the team at 12-5 or anything. They finished at like 532. The entire South was barely
9-8. Not bad. 9-8.
Uh-huh.
The record was 9-8. The Buccaneer record last year.
9-8. But still, that's barely above 500. It's one game above 500 is what I'm saying. You didn't go and get a coach. You didn't go and get us a coach that's comparable, that's a winning coach. He had not proven himself yet in Tampa Bay, in my opinion. And so then he goes and gets his OC and brings him in. And so here we have it. Now we brought Pete Carroll's son into this, and it's just a name game at this point. I don't think anybody's proven anything.
So to sum it up, Carolina's still a mess. Pags, I want to get to you in some Philadelphia Eagles.
Real quick. I got a question for Sonia because she's getting into a very unique type of situation. You've loved Carolina, the Panthers, for as long as I've known you. Mm-hmm. Is there ever a point where you will stop liking them and go to a different team and start rooting for a different? I'm asking this in a real sense. You are frustrated with your franchise. You're seeing things that they're doing, and you're not agreeing with how they're doing it. Is there come a point where you would stop rooting for them? And you live in Atlanta, so it wouldn't be crazy for you to become an Atlanta fan. Is there that point?
Yeah, it's. I've had a lot of people ask me that. I'm getting inboxes from random people that just follow my page, my Panthers fan page, just asking me how much more can you take? And I kind of feel like I'm gonna be like how the Jets are. They say they rolled for 50 years. That's what CJ said. With nothing. I'm gonna still love them, but there are times, Pags, I have to be honest. I don't even watch the game. After we started dropping about that fourth game in a row of losses, I was like, I just want to watch a game I can enjoy. Let me turn to another team that I'm not emotionally invested in. It's crazy because, you guys know, I just had a birthday. So in Georgia, your tag is renewed when it's your birthday. And my tags are personalized. They literally say Panthers on the back, like my Georgia tag. And I've contemplated, because I have not renewed it yet, I've contemplated switching my tag out because I was like, I'll keep the frame on it, but it's just hard. But so right now, it's a TBD right now, Pags.
So you have a toxic relationship with your team.
So complicated.
Wow.
But
that was a good question to ask. I wasn't sure. Like I said, I hear you complain about them all the time. I thought it was an appropriate question.
This is how great an interviewer Pags is. He got her to talk about her license plates. That's deep. When you get a person talking about the license plates, you have just covered about everything you can. So Malik, of course, your offensive lineman says no way. Jason Kelsey's coming back interviewing ESPN, Fox, and another network. He's been interviewing for sports commentator jobs, so he doesn't think he's coming back. Jamie, he thinks he's all done. That Kelsey won't be playing next year. I know you think maybe he still will. But that's what the player on the team says.
I assume you meant Jordan Mailata.
Yes.
Malika. I was trying to figure out who Malika was. I'm like, I don't even know who Malika is.
Well,
So
me either. I don't even know who
Andrew.
listen, Jordan Mailata doesn't get to speak for Jason. And I know if you're going to ask his opinion, he's like, yeah, he's going to go. It's like, I think he comes back. I really do.
Maybe his extension. A bad extension, Pags, for how he played last year. It seems to me that Mayberry's one of those big cornerbacks, right? That relies on kind of roughing you up. He's got some decent speed, but he's not the fastest defensive back out there. Do you think maybe they should move him to safety like they did with like a Ronnie Lott or something like that?
Bradbury?
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yes.
maybe.
He's killing the names today. I tell you, I'm trying to figure out. He said Mayberry. Like I thought we were talking about something from
Andy Griffith show.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Mayberry. RFD.
Did I see
North Carolina.
Mayberry? I meant Brad. The Giants.
Here's some coffee, Mac. I got you some coffee.
Yeah. Thank you. So, what do you think, Pags? Move him to safety or leave him at cornerback? I mean, I know. Last year he had a bad year.
Yeah, he did have a tough year last year. Vic Fangio's defense relies on safeties, and you need really good safeties. And I don't know that you could transition a cornerback to the safety and expect the type of result that you're going to want to get from that. So I don't know that that's the move there. I know that he signed a 3-year contract. I know that there's a couple of cornerbacks. One from I think Pittsburgh that just came up, or maybe he was a linebacker. I'm not sure. He just got dropped. That I was reading about.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, saying that he had a down year because I mean, obviously he was good with the Giants. He was good his first year here, and then all of a sudden he had such a drop off. When you have a drop off like that, something tells me that it tells me more that there was a personal situation that occurred. This had nothing. This was not football related. I don't think. I don't know the man. I don't know his, what's going on in his life. I just know that he played at such a high level for the Giants, played at a really high level for us in the Super Bowl year, and then last year was just seemed unfocused. Like if I could bring it down to one thing, it was just unfocused. He just wasn't. He wasn't in on it.
Well, I asked.
My thought is,
I asked that because a lot of cornerbacks, not a lot, but some of the better quarterbacks did move to safety. I mentioned Ronnie Lott. I know somebody from the Dallas Cowboys. I can't remember his name. Was it? I think it was the one that was up for the Hall of Fame. What didn't? Oh God, I can't remember his name right now. Jim, the number 24 Walls. Didn't he move to safety? Yes,
with the Giants.
Right, and he played well for him there. So that's why I'm asking that, Pags. He's a big guy. I think he could cover a tight end or something like that over the middle. That's why I was asking that.
But Bradbury is a former Panther. He did the same thing in Carolina, Pags. It was like those 2 good stellar seasons, and then we don't know what happened, and they released him. I mean, traded him.
And so he went to the Giants, stayed there for a year, and then they dropped him, and then we picked him up. So, and like I said, he's got it in him. He's just, So I'm going to take this as a down year, and if that's what he does, he plays 2 good years, has a bad year, 2 good years, has a bad year. Well, then he just had his bad year, so we should have 2 more good years from him. If that's the trend.
Okay. If y'all keep them.
The Georgia, a lot of Georgia players taken by the Eagles. 3 haven't worked out yet, Pags. Nakeem Dean, Nokon Smith, Jordan Davis, I think is the other one. The 3 out of the 5 haven't worked out yet. You think maybe it was a mistake to kind of
Nolan Smith, Nakeem Dean.
And Roquan is good.
And Jordan Davis. Those 3 are what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith, I couldn't get on the field last year, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. I think he'll be able to have a little bit more play because of the 3-4 defense. He's more of a 3-4 defense guy than a 4-3 defense guy. So under Vic, he should be able to get a little bit more play. Nakeem Dean was probably their most serviceable middle linebacker, for whatever that means. I mean, it was like when he was there, at least he showed some structure to that position, where when he wasn't there and he was hurt, which was the thing coming into the draft, that he was too small, he's going to wind up getting hurt. Once he came out, it was just, there was no structure at all to that middle linebacker position. Jordan Davis is, listen, tackles, or defensive tackles usually take a few years to get their feet underneath them. And then, so I'm going to give him another year or two before I start to make final judgment on him. Not everybody's going to come out and be Fletcher Cox. And that's a real statement. So I think that as he goes forward, because he's a big boy, and again, it's a matter of just being able to use your hands. How do you use your hands to break through those blocks and such like that, especially as an interior lineman? I got to assume. I mean, and Jim might speak for this a lot better. Your hand play there is so critical in comparison to even on the outside. You can get by with speed on the outside, but on the inside, you have to be able to break those blocks and such like that, I think.
And the big thing is you're getting hit from every direction. You're never not getting hit as obviously an interior player. That's why it's so different. You see it from left, you see it from right, you see it straight ahead. So yes, and plus the conditioning of some of those guys that big, that is hard, because you got a guy that's over 350 pounds and you say, wow, that's big. But he also has to be in great shape, because this year he played more plays than he's probably played in a long time. And he's playing against excellent players, and it wears you down getting hit all that time. And that's the hard thing.
I always thought the interior line was a lot more about leverage than it was about using your hands to get underneath the offense.
No, you gotta have a hand placement, that goes with your leverage.
You want right. And
the reason why I know any of this is because I spent a lot of time this year with Hollis Thomas, who obviously was an interior lineman. They call him the Tank, and so you get to, you start asking questions like, well, why is he struggling? And he actually, Tank actually would explain to me certain things that make sense. It's like, hey, listen, when you're young, you're learning how to do all that. You can't pick all of that up in a season or two. There's just so much to learn, that if you're a big guy and you can shed the blocks, like when you can get them from all sides and you're still standing and you're not getting pancaked, you've won the first couple of years, because you've clogged up space. That's what you're doing. You're clogging up space and having other people make tackles. Once you start to figure out the hand play is when you start making tackles and you start disrupting more.
And when you look at it, you see who's effective, who was for a long time, is Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald was undersized, but he had unique quickness, and he could use his hand. And he's still working. If you see film of him working in all season, what is he working on? His hand and all things like that. Because it's tough playing inside. That's a different world, playing inside.
Yeah, it takes a special
Pat, what I find a bigger name play on the Eagles who's been in the news, not in a pleasant way, Jalen Carter, with these alleged threats. What are the Eagles going to do as far as that goes going forward? I mean, is his behavior going to be monitored? Is it possible the league might come down on him? Because if it's true, these allegations, it is pretty disturbing.
Yeah, but you got to know the background of that. The kid basically was talking about him in that car accident.
I understand, but if he threatens someone else in their family, it's unacceptable under any circumstance.
That's where the backstory really comes in, where they went deep dive into that. I guess the NFL went on both sides, and you're hearing the Jalen Carter part. They started to go on the opposite side. Oh, this is how you're going to play. This is, that's like dirty pool. You know what I mean? That's like hitting below the belt. being a football player is a fraternity. And when you start to do stuff like that, it starts, it has a ripple effect. So I'm going to imagine that it goes both ways on this regard.
Yeah. And I think I would agree with that because there's some things shouldn't be said. And regardless, you can say a lot of things on a football field, but there's some things because people were killed in that situation.
And the Eagles did go ahead and draft him, but he already has all these civil litigations that are going on that are connected with that incident here at UGA and down here in Georgia. So you always hear people mention it. Philadelphia is known for taking a lot of UGA alum. In fact, they have like the little saying up here that is the UGA up there. And so that is still very fresh for people, in this area, especially we're just coming up on another season here, like maybe not even 2 seasons removed from that happening. And so the fact that he would even bring that up, knowing that this is, something that is sensitive, like I'm sure he's very remorseful for that. It was an accident for all intents and purposes, even though your behavior contributed. It was still an accident.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is that the other guy who was in that car got in on his own accord. It had nothing to do with Jalen Carter on the fact that he lost control of the vehicle. It wasn't like Jalen Carter pushed him to a wall or something.
Yeah, and it came out later. It came out later because of footage. They didn't even know that he was actually there because it was almost like that incident happened apart from Jalen, but Jalen's incident initially started that. That's how it happened.
So, and the fact that they're even doing a civil lawsuit is again, he did this on his own accord. He made his own decisions. His own decisions ended fatally, unfortunately.
But let's be clear. They only got the civil suit once Jalen got signed because at first the parents were like, we're not suing anybody. We just want peace. Now they're suing the school, the athletic association, and anybody that got ties that's going to have some money coming in. Jalen.
Listen, that's society. You go out drinking in a bar, you drink too much, you can sue the bartender in the place. So, that's just the way it is today. Let's stay with sports here, not the civil, the civil thing here. Let's get into the NBA. The NBA Celebrity All-Star Game. It seems like they want to do everything else but make the game better. So, we got all these new things that they throw at us every year. I guess Stephen A. Smith got hurt, leg got broken. Nothing happened to his jaw, which would probably have been better for everybody concerned. But anyway, he trips over Micah Parsons, who accidentally, kind of went in front of him. So Stephen A. had to go to hospital. He got a X-rays done. I guess he's okay. So he had continued coaching that game anyway. I don't know who won it. I don't care. You guys interested in who won the dunking contest and the 3-point contest? And
the same guy who won it last year. He jumped over Shaq.
Yes, he jumped over Shaq.
Micah Parsons was MVP of that celebrity game. So congratulations to Jim.
Mac-ack-Sonja
the guy was a tremendous athlete. He's a Philadelphia area kid. He's a tremendous athlete. But he's got to be
Mac-ack-Sonja. No, he's not from Philadelphia.
No. I'm talking about Parsons.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So anyway, that and the girl versus guy, the guy won, but the girl I guess made 26 points. Yes.
Sabrina, she's pretty darn good.
So that was good. They got a little WWE
for the second year and won the 3-year 3-point contest again. Damian Lillard won that, but he didn't get the belt. Curry got the WWE belt there for beating the girls. So there you go. So there you are. Anyway, so Mason said the one who won the dunk contest is a G League player.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know that much.
I served chicken with him last year.
Oh yeah, there you go. All right.
At Raising Cane, yes, I was there, and we were both at an appearance at the same time.
So Jokic is number one in the MVP voting, according to experts there. He's the best player, maybe. Is he the MVP? I don't know. I don't even know how you figure it out anymore because most valuable player should be on a team that's probably is competing, and he's the reason why they're competing. You could give that award to probably 20 different players in the league. So I know Jokic is a little special with his shooting and that, but, does he deserve to win it year after year? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Call it best play in the league. Let's just change the name of the award. You could make a valid argument Jokic is the best play in the league. And, let's take it from there. That means Jordan and LeBron would have won it year after year after year. Not that they didn't win their MVP awards, but I'd like to see it best players, even if he's on a team not as good, but he's carrying the team. He could be up for the award. It would always drive me crazy, any MVP award in any league, if someone's not on a good team, like Ohtani, for example. The Angels were a lousy team in baseball, yet he'd get the MVP award. They could finish in last place without him. So how's he an MVP? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Definitely understand that reasoning. Always been
MVP. To me, the award is for the success also of the team, and he's helping that a success. Correct?
You would think, Jim. I would think that. I mean, Alex Rodriguez, another one in Texas that got the MVP, and I think they finished in last place that year.
Place, yeah.
Right. And he probably was the best baseball player at the time, but he wasn't the MVP of the league, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So
wasn't that the same thing with Tony Gwynn? I mean, let's go back even a little bit further.
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn, San Diego stunk when
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn was there.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree.
I have a
But
question.
he was still a great player. You know what I mean?
They went to the
no.
84 World Series, the Padres against the Tigers, where they lost in 5 games. So he did have one year where they went to the series, Tony Gwynn. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question for Pags. So Adam Silver has gone on the record as saying he's interested perhaps in getting an NBA team in Pittsburgh. Pags, what are your thoughts about another Pennsylvania NBA team?
They're going to call them the Pisces?
Something like that. I don't know.
That would be like the fish that saved Pittsburgh, right? That was a movie back in the day. It might be before your time even.
Yeah, it's like
you know what?
Yeah.
I good for them. I don't know that Pittsburgh has the people to
Right.
go and sell out the arenas for that all the time. That's exactly correct. Julius Erving was the star of that movie. I think that there's other spots. I mean, obviously they want to put one in Vegas. They were considering putting one in Seattle. If they do put 2 teams out in the West, they are going to have to transition 2 teams over into the East. So it would probably be a couple of the Texas teams would wind up becoming East teams rather than West teams. So I'm for it. You know what I mean? If you're going to try to put one out there, I don't mind another team in Pittsburgh. I mean, when I think about how I do my fandom in general, I go very, very local, city, school, county, city, state, country, world.
Yeah, Pags is a fan of the world. I've heard him say that before on the show.
Yeah, listen, when we go up against any games against Mars or Venus, I am definitely pro Team Earth.
You're picking in the Olympics with flag football.
I'm glad about that. So anyway, after this season, LeBron, does he leave the Lakers for Cleveland or Miami? Or I mean, this is the talk out there. If he does go to the Lakers, where does he go? I would imagine he stays in LA. I don't think he moves.
Do you think it's predicated on if Bronny comes out, which I don't know? Is it predicated wanting to play with his son? Because
they were saying that Bronny is not playing with his other son, so he'll be waiting for both of them.
He will go anywhere Bronny goes and take the league minimum if he has to. It won't get in his way a contract. He made that clear. He'll go to the Toronto Raptors, LeBron, if they get Bronny. And believe me, Bronny's stock is probably going to go up somewhat. Let's say Bronny was going to be the number 20 overall pick in the draft, hypothetically. You mean to tell me a team won't take him in the top 10, 7 to 8, knowing they'll get LeBron a package deal?
I don't know. I wouldn't think so, but you never know.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I feel like that you would need to be one of those bubble teams, like in that 9 seed or the 10 seed that barely
like Atlanta or Charlotte.
Yeah,
somewhere
like
down in there.
Atlanta would be a spot that I could see
Yep.
taking him because, obviously, Trae Young, but they would have to trade Trae Young.
Yeah.
Because
They're
where is he
talking
going to
about
play then?
Trae Young being traded. Those talks are already out because they said he's just not producing like he was. So Trae Young
Well,
is becoming Trae
ever
old.
since they changed the rule where you're not allowed to bump somebody and then shoot the ball, I mean
Yep.
he's no longer any good.
And he just got a fine for obscene gestures with the refs down there the other day. So he's frustrated anyway.
Yeah. And Bryce, LeBron's youngest son, they said he has more upside than Bronny.
Yeah, they said because of Bronny's health, he got kind of held back a little bit. So he and Bryce are all going to be like almost within the same timeline of coming out. So they were like, it could be a triple for all three of them. Who knows if Bryce actually comes in and does. That's where I read somewhere as well.
Does it depend who drafts Bronny? I mean, if there's a team that goes up there that say a bad team they drafts Bronny, does LeBron still go, or does Bronny even go? Or I mean, there's still a lot of questions. Whether does Bronny really want to play with his father? Does his son want to play with his father? I mean, there's a lot of questions that we're not thinking about here that could affect whether LeBron James leaves and goes somewhere else.
I know Jim's son wouldn't want to play with him if they were on the same, line in football.
No, I'm just saying.
Jim,
I mean,
Jim, to that.
You're talking about a big shoes to fill there, a big shadow to fill.
That's really hard. Think about it. To fill LeBron James, regardless of how you feel about him, he is one of the all-time best athletes who played basketball, and to fill his shoes, and you got two sons coming up, and everybody's expectations are for those two kids are going to be high, and that's the problem you have is that now you're trying to live up to one of the legends of the game, and it's probably not going to happen that way. I mean,
and that would be a handful for whoever the head coach is to have LeBron come over with his son, and the head coach would be under such pressure. It would take someone like a Coach Pop who could handle it, who LeBron has tremendous reverence for, and who likes LeBron back as well, where he could explain to LeBron, I'm developing your son little by little. Into
that's not a bad.
Let LeBron be the head coach and bring in X and O guys. That might work, actually. Bill Russell was the head coach of the Celtics, wasn't he? And they
didn't work for Magic Johnson, and he worked for so many former players in basketball.
That was a different time, Jack, with Boston. I mean, he basically coached the same team he played on. So I mean, it wasn't really.
He was a captain. Was the head coach for the San Antonio Conquistadors in the ABA. People forget that Wilt was actually a head coach.
Jack will throw that nugget out there every time. I bet you no one on here knew.
I was 3 years old when that happened, Jack.
I wasn't here.
What, when Wilt Chamberlain was a coach?
Yeah, he was actually a head coach of San Antonio.
See, no, you're right. I had no clue that ever occurred.
Well, they didn't win,
and we're gonna have.
He also, that was probably during his professional volleyball days.
Yeah, I
Wilt
think
Chamberlain played professional volleyball too.
He was good
was
too.
Wilt a better volleyball player than he was a basketball player? What was Wilt better, basketball or volleyball? What was he better at?
I mean, they changed rules in the basketball for him, so I'm going to go ahead and say basketball. But I heard he was very dominant in volleyball. Like you just, the blocks, like he would have blocks and spikes and stuff like that all game long. It was hard to compete against.
Yes. So
Jeff
anyway.
Coat would have bailed out at the net against Wilt in volleyball. I'm telling you, Jeff Coat would have bailed out when the Big Dipper came over for the spike.
Jack, I didn't know that.
Yes. So anyway, maybe we should have like how everybody has the questions where the question with what is it called, guys? When you say like the question that tries to stump everybody, maybe we should give that to Jack. You know what I mean? Maybe we should let him give us a question, and we can all sit down and not know the answer. What do you think? That'd be boring. That'd be boring. So Milwaukee.
Yeah, the problem is that I don't remember professional sports in the 1800s.
No, that's true. That's true.
Going back to that, with bare knuckle boxing now is starting to take off a bit. So they're going.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Oh
it
my
is.
with
Yeah.
centuries.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, Jack,
We'll
you
get-
are
we'll get-
amazing.
We'll get to the boxing segment too, Jack. So anyway, Giannis is kind of saying it's urgent that we start winning, and of course you have Doc Crimea Rivers over there trying to tell him why they're not winning. He's complaining about the players not knowing what the play is, like it's their fault. And what a bad move the Bucks made. What were the Bucks thinking? I mean, why would you get rid of a coach and you're winning and go and get Doc Rivers and bring him? What's the plan there? I don't get that.
Doc Rivers is drowning them.
Oh,
What
my
the
God.
buck?
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of different things you could say there. I mean, anybody that's a Bucks fan must be ticked right now. I would be. I mean, that's crazy.
You do have a point.
There had to be
You know what?
something that was
I-
not performance related that as the reason why there was a separation there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they wanted somebody to really coach the All-Star game.
Right. Clearly.
That could have been it. I think they might have been. I think they
Well,
might have been.
that's a weird situation because
It
Griffin.
is, and I think Sonya's
They
right.
they were tied for first or near
Yeah,
first.
they were right there. They were right with the
East.
Celtics. They were
Yeah.
right there. I think Sonya's right. There had to be something personal with. I don't know. I don't know. So, yeah, Jamie, what the buck is wrong with the Bucks? There you go, Robert.
Hey.
Look at that.
Let me just say something with the Bucks move with Adrian Griffin moving on from him and hiring Doc Rivers. It wouldn't have happened had Giannis spoken up beforehand. By Giannis not being involved with the move, they could tell Giannis wasn't happy. The defense of the Bucks had slid backwards. Damian Lillard wasn't thrilled. I'm not saying they forced the issue with the coach being replaced, but they were behind it. Look, the same thing happened at Cleveland with LeBron and David Blatt, the coach. They were 30 wins, 11 losses at Cleveland, and they knew LeBron wasn't a big fan of David Blatt. But had LeBron stepped forward beforehand, said, look, it'll work out. We want him to coach the team. The Cavaliers never would have moved on from David Blatt.
Yeah,
I mean, I remember
Giannis's brother never plays, but he's been there. He got the best job in America.
That's the truth. That is the truth. I just don't. There's some moves that are made. Maybe there is a personal breakdown. Maybe the players are kind of upset with you. But man, why Doc Rivers? I never got that. I never got that move. I mean, there are other basketball coaches.
Well, because he's got a championship pedigree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1-1. Yeah.
Well, here's a fact. How about Steph Curry goes to the Hornets and wears the same number as his dad, Dale Curry, number 30.
Curry, yeah.
Just a little little comparison there since we talking about Giannis, the brother.
But maybe you guys can answer this question. Why does Mark Jackson never got another job?
He did something, Jim. He did something to somebody. I mean,
yeah, he cut somebody off.
Yeah, he did something really. I don't know what it was, but he ticked off an owner. I know that, and the owners talk. I mean, maybe Jack knows.
Well, he made a lot of socially unacceptable remarks behind the scenes.
Oh.
And he created a toxic atmosphere when he was at Golden State. When you reportedly, and I underline the word reportedly, disrespectful to the workers, the everyday workers in the organization, and no one at all likes you there. I mean, it goes a long way. When he had a great job as a national commentator with Jeff Van Gundy for years and years, and he didn't exactly distinguish himself in that position, even though he held on to it. Had he distinguished himself, let's say the way a UB Brown did, I think he would have somehow found his way back into the league. But I think all the antisocial remarks that Jackson made when it came back to haunt any franchise later on, it wouldn't have prevented me from hiring him if I truly thought he was my guy.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Yeah, I just was curious because I enjoy watching him in the NBA.
Yeah. He was a good point guard. He definitely was, and a good coach when he did coach. I think he coached. Wasn't it the Warriors before Steph?
Yeah, he did a good job leading into their championship. He played a role in it. Yeah. We can misdo that. It was more than his coaching performance. It's like another Eric Bieniemy situation with Mark Jackson.
I was just about to say. I was just gonna
There you
say we see
go.
that throughout all the professional sports that if you have a personal issue somewhere, it bleeds over into you professionally and it can inhibit, everything going forward, like your jobs or lack thereof.
all there is all at that level, coaches. It's all about relationships. Jim knows that very well.
Very
With
so.
staffs, yeah. If you don't have a good relationship, that could cost you other jobs somewhere else. Golden Knights did snap the Oilers' 16-game winning streak. That was the longest winning streak in the NHL active anyway this year. They're moving outside. They're playing hockey outside again. I know Pags was at an outdoor arena last night, if I'm not mistaken. I saw him and is it a lot more fun outside, Pags, or you like it better in the arena?
I like it better in the arena.
It's cold out there.
Yeah. Think about go to a football game in late January in the cold. It sucks. And then you're playing on the rink. The rink hasn't changed size. It's not like they make it the size of the football field, which would make it a lot more interesting, by the way. That would be exciting. Make the rink bigger. And now all of a sudden things would get a lot more crazy. But they don't do that. So it's harder to watch. It's cold. I guess it's exciting because you get to see a hockey game with 70. It said there were 70,000 people there. It didn't look like 70,000 people to me, but
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's part of the fun of it.
Different, right? Yeah, different.
Speaking of cold, how was your jump the other day in the water? I was following you.
Very cold. I am not a fan of jumping into cold water. I'm not a fan of that's just not my thing. I don't do polar plunges. That was my first ever polar plunge, and I'll tell you the one video that nobody got that somebody should have that would have been funny to watch is my reaction as I got out of the water.
I was looking for it.
Sonia has replaced Jack of taking the show totally off for him, man. Sonia, you have him on there on your show. You can ask him all these questions. Hold us back here a little bit. The 2000 the Winter Classic. Speaking of cold, will be held at Wrigley's Field. This goes back to where there used to be hockey clubs, and that's where they played way back during Jack's time in like the 1920s and stuff like that. That's when the hockey clubs played outside all the time. Boxing news. Let's get into boxing news, Jack. Not Shinga climbed back to the top, winning the IBF flyweight crown with a TKO against Curiel. Jack, is that a good fight?
Yeah, that was a bit of an upset. I'm still waiting on the tape of that fight because I had to cover another fight with Shaki Foster, retaining his WBC junior featherweight title against Abraham Nova. So I had to cover that fight in the undercard. So I'm waiting to, see the tape on that fight. We'll probably talk about it on Glove Fist tomorrow night.
So you covered the Foster fight. That was my next one.
Yeah. There was a knockdown. Foster scored a knockdown with 20 seconds left in the fight. Had he not scored the knockdown, there's a good chance he still would have retained the title, but it would have been a draw instead of getting a win. And Shaki Foster talked about moving up 3 weight divisions to challenge Kano Ben, but Shaki Foster doesn't strike me as any type of dominant fighter who's going to be top dog either in and around his weight division. So, he'd stick to that. These guys talk. It's all like a social media thing, like Jim was mentioning before. That's what people get caught up on. It's not so much the merits of the fighters as far as their personalities.
Haven't heard too much about the YouTube sensation turned boxer and his fights there. I haven't heard about him too much, Jack, lately. Is there anything going on with him?
Fighting in Puerto Rico against a bring along your own opponent type. But give Jake Paul credit. He started from scratch. He's actually a decent fighter, not like world class, but he's actually a decent fighter. He's paid his dues. It's easy to laugh at him, but, he's been in the gym constantly. He's been honing his skills. And even though his victories have been against mixed martial artists, the point is he's been beating guys with fighting experience and good guys. Not real boxers, but legitimate martial artists. So, I'm willing to give him his due in that regard.
Why can't you get a fight with a real boxer, Jack?
Well, he did. Jake Paul's going to cash out at some point. I could see him fighting Canelo Alvarez at some point because Canelo is picking and choosing his spots. Canelo is avoiding a fight with Terence Crawford and David Benavidez because Benavidez is a monster Canelo size who's capable of maybe even knocking Canelo out and destroying him perhaps. And Terence Crawford is a generational talent. And even though he's a smaller guy than Canelo, it's a very, very risky fight for Canelo. So he doesn't want to go there with that. So he's picking and choosing his spots. Jake Paul's going to generate tremendous business, tremendous money for Canelo, and he won't be nearly the same risk as Benavidez and Crawford.
I thought that Crawford and Canelo have a fight. They already agreed on it.
No. Canelo talks. Canelo is picking and choosing very carefully, and he's using excuses. He says, well, if I beat Crawford, no one's going to give me credit for beating a much smaller guy, but if I lose to him, it's going to be bad. He says, I have nothing to gain, so I'm not fighting him. Canelo is thinking, what's his excuse not fighting David Benavidez, a guy in his division, the fight everyone wants to see? He's going to say, well, Benavidez has to prove himself more. Well, he proved himself. He just took out Demetrius Andrade, a top-of-the-line fighter who Canelo's been ducking. And then Canelo on a rematch with Dimitri Bivol, the guy who beat him. He makes Bivol an offer that's so low, he knows Bivol is going to turn it down. I mean, Canelo, he's going to fight Jamal Charlo next, an unbeaten middleweight who's had, one fight in like 3 years, 2 fights in 3 years. It's been woefully inactive. Then he's going to fight Jamie Munguia, another unbeaten fight, a legitimate fight to make, but someone who doesn't pose nearly the threat to Canelo that Crawford and Benavidez would. And that's what it is, like picking and choosing. Can you imagine that the Kansas City Chiefs next season can pick their schedule? They'll put, no offense, Sonia, they'll put the Carolina Panthers on it for 2 games. Then they'll look the Washington Commanders a game and this and that. And, they'll avoid the teams that really have a chance to beat them. A serious chance.
Jack, what's going on with the Fury-Usyk fight?
It's supposed to take place now in, May 18th, I believe the date is. Fury got allegedly the cut was legitimate, why they canceled the last fight, but people are getting tired of Tyson Fury. They want to see the darn fight take place. You tell me if you're Usyk, what are you thinking? He wasn't there for the birth of his daughter because he was training for the last fight. And then Fury pulls out on him like a lot of people suspected he would, even though the cut may have been legitimate and this may have been a legitimate pullout. Well, what's going through Usyk's mind? Does he lose his edge? Supposedly he's training through to May and not stopping. And you kind of wonder what Fury's doing in the meantime because the cut takes time to heal and all. And will he be the same? I mean, we just don't know. With Tyson Fury's a loose cannon. And
do you think the fight actually happens?
I believe it does eventually. I think Fury's the type who might think if he loses, the heck with it. But what no one's talking about, they got a rematch clause. So whatever happens, they're supposed to fight again. If Usyk wins, I believe his career is going to continue indefinitely. If Fury wins, I could see him just retiring and not having the rematch, or the rematch taking forever to take place.
I mean, he's retired before, so they don't. Boxers really don't retire anymore. They take a long break and then they come back and.
It's ridiculous. It really is, man.
So a good fight that I think a lot of people don't know about, because a lot of people don't know the names of Beterbiev and Bivol. To me, this is going to be a great fight. Different styles, Jack. Beterbiev is a monster. He's a machine, but he's getting older. And I mean, eventually, you got to start running out of steam. This guy, what is he, 38, 37?
Yeah, 39. And boxing's a little different from other sports. In another sport, you're relying more on your foot speed, and then obviously it slows down by age 39. Look, Jim was an older world-class athlete, and he could tell you probably towards the end of your career, you lost a little explosive movement, just a tiny bit of speed, perhaps chasing the quarterback at the end. I don't mean to be funny, Jim, but when you get to be a little older, but boxing, you could take certain shortcuts. Even though you may have lost a little bit of your physical being. Look at Muhammad Ali, the way he found a shortcut with the rope-a-dope and certain angles and breaking opponents down. What?
George Foreman.
George Foreman, the second great example, the second coming of George Foreman. He didn't nearly have the physical capabilities that he had earlier, but yet he was more relaxed, calmer, different fighter. But I look for Better Beef to make a statement in the fight. Bivol will do well in the early rounds, and Better Beef eventually knocks him out.
Hey, look at Rocky Balboa, that movie. I mean, he was 54.
Rocky.
In the movie.
Yeah.
Speed, everything. You ain't got it.
Now, Bowen in Philadelphia, would you have given him his license back? Carl Weathers, who recently passed away, he played the part of Apollo Creed great. I mean, we kind of remember him. And I don't know, Jim, did you remember Carl Weathers as a football player at all?
I think he was before me, Jack. I think he was.
No, I mean, there was any talk. It was with the.
He was. I think he wasn't with the Raiders very long.
I think he was there for like 2 years.
Yeah, 5 games.
And then that was
ridiculous. Yeah, something ridiculous. They said he was emotionally he couldn't handle it or something. I forget what the reason why it was they let him go. But anyway, Carl Weathers, great actor. He played a lot of more roles. I watched him. I just saw him in like an old kung fu movie or something I was watching by the Kung Fu series. He's been around for a long time. Yeah, it really was. So, folks, unless you all got something else, ready to end the show a little early today. No NBA games. That kind of slowed us up a little bit. Yeah, the all-star garbage stuff. So anyway, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for the likes, the shares, the loves, and the views. Have a great day. Me and Jack will be back Monday morning with NESSP in the morning. He'll also be on J&B Talking Shop Pags with Coast to Coast tomorrow. Sonia, I think, has a day off. I gave her the day off Mondays and Tuesdays. I think Jim will be back on Wednesday, J&B Talking Shop with Byron William. Of course, Sonia will be on NESSP at night. Prim and proper. Ladies, I know she's got like 3 different names, folks, but it's with Sonia Pearson. So that's all you got to know. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great Sunday, folks. And we'll